Come join Kyle, John and David as they go through what's on the playlist. Find out what's everyone's favourite at Chicken Soup for the Soul Entertainment. We have a few segments, to be honest. In and out points, no celebs and the gossip. Back in time where we're talking about the big M's coming attractions, what the queue. Quick checks, who'll be laughing? You abundantly. Welcome to Dual Redundancy.
Yes, welcome to Dual Redundancy, the only podcast where you can hear all latest in television and entertainment news with two millennials with exactly the same opinions. I'm one of those hosts, David Allen, and another one is
John Berg, and a third one is
Kyle Bridger. I would say that I'm the Tommy to John's Joel. He's a fearless leader. To our angsty teen, Dave, who's Ellie.
Yes. Did I make it out of The Last of Us Season 1 finale? Did any of us make it out? We'll spoil that later on. We'll talk about the finale in Season 1 of The Last of Us. In the second half of the show, we'll break it all down. But the first half, we have another big event that was also last night, Sunday, March 12th. It was on ABC, the 95th Academy Awards. We're going to break it all down as well. No in and out points tonight. Just two main topics to talk about. So let's jump in and talk about the Oscars.
I think you're looking at an Academy Award nomination also.
Did he just say what I thought he said?
What? Yes, Victor!
Oscars. I smell Oscars.
You see what a little buzz can do in this town?
I predicted it. I said this is the one. This is the vehicle. Morley, you told me not to do it.
I just realized, I believe that was a clip that was directed by the husband of now an Academy Award winner, Jamie Lee Curtis. We'll talk about that as well. But first, let's break it down. The 95th Academy Awards, March 12th on ABC. Going into the night, Everything Everywhere All at Once led with 11 nominations, followed by All Quiet on the Western Front and The Banshees of Inisherin with 9. Then Elvis had 8. The Fabelmans had 7. So on and so on. Despite all that, just 3 films had multiple wins last night. The Whale with 2, All Quiet on the Western Front with 4, and then Everything Everywhere All at Once with 7, including Best Picture. All right, we're going to break it all down. We're going to go through pretty much all the big wins, all the big surprises, but initial thoughts, Kyle. Those are your top 3 films that had multiple wins, Everything Everywhere cleaned up. What's your take on it all?
Well, I mean, we kind of foresaw this as a possibility, right? We thought it could be Everything Everywhere All at Once's night to really, take control. And we kind of thought it might happen early on, and that could be, what it was going to be like throughout. It seemed like everyone really loved the movie, just from the response from the crowd as well. But I think it's a really well-liked film, and I think that helped it with its lasting power, and in the campaigning of the nominations and all that. But I'm not surprised. It's really good, and it was winning all the awards up until that. So the only thing that I can say about All Quiet on the Western Front, I love the movie. And I'm not surprised that it won a bunch of below the line stuff, because I feel like that's probably, where they expected to win those kinds of categories.
Yeah. We've talked about Everything Everywhere All at Once. It won everything up to this. Mm-hmm. And Screen Actors Guild, Directors Guild, Producers Guild, etc., Critics' Choice. It was cleaning up. I was looking up, actually. It's like funny, this just shows like how meaningless like the Golden Globes are. I believe like it didn't do that well at the Golden Globes, but like the Fabelmans did really well and the Banshees did really well. Mm-hmm. Neither of which did well at the Oscars. But this film, it broke some of the conventional Oscar wisdom as well. And you mentioned a few, and I'm going to kind of go through some of the records and the kind of the stats it kind of broke here, where the last few years, the film with the most Oscar noms almost kind of has like this dark mark on it. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the big winner. Power of the Dog last year, 1 out of 12 nominations. Mank, 2 years before that, 2 out of 10 nominations. 0 for 10 for The Irishman, 3 for 10 for Roma. And none of those wins for any of those films were for Best Picture. I mean, and then you look at Coda last year, it had just 3 noms and it won 3 awards, and one of which was Best Picture. So it's like, oh, just because it was leading with 11 nominations doesn't mean it was going to be the big winner, at least what we've seen in past years. But it was with 7 wins, and it had such a long road. You mentioned this, like, it's such a well-liked film that it's been like here with us for such a long time. It came out in theaters, I believe, the weekend before last year's Academy Awards. You know, so it's like, you know, we're seeing it with like the TV like submissions right now. There's gonna be so much TV in March and April, new shows, returning shows, because they're all trying to get in the Emmy submission cutoff. You know, the very last minute before that's it, no more Emmy noms. You know, like you, and most of the time with Oscars, they wait till the fall or December to kind of release their film, get the buzz then, and keep it. But this film had buzz since March of last year, February. Like, you know, it's just normally like they lose steam, but this had the frontrunner status this entire time.
I'm thinking about all the Best Picture nominees, and I feel like that movie is the one with the most like rewatchability component to it, because I feel like it's very nuanced, and also it's just a fun watch where it's like even something like All Quiet on the Western Front, that's almost like work. It's very heavy, bloody. I love Banshees, but you know, you gotta work your way into that one. Avatar, I'm not going to go back and watch because the story wasn't good. I mean, besides maybe Top Gun, I think the rewatchability, I think, lends itself to, you know, its win because of how popular it was overall. And it blurs that line between kind of like a box office-y picture and an Oscar picture.
Yeah, I think there's been some talk like online of maybe why it did so well with the Academy, especially, you know, maybe with some of the, because the worry was like, oh, well, older audiences really, you know, vote for this film. Like, of course, it's, you know, we love it. You know, the younger, I mean, I'm saying younger, we're pushing it ourselves now at this point, but it's like, oh, like, will the older generation go for this film? And I've heard like some say like, yeah, they might have not liked it like that first go around, or maybe they couldn't get through it the first go around back in March, April, May of last year, but it's been around for so long. It's like, oh, let me give it another shot, or let me watch it again. And then they find something new to like about it. And this film has just so many like narratives around the film where not only was it such a unique and historic film, but you had like the comeback story of Kiwi Kwan. Like, you know, it's like he's from the days of Goonies and Temple of Doom, he's back. And then you also have the like it's time narrative for somebody like Michelle Yeoh, and also for Jamie Lee Curtis. You got 2 of them in this, you know, like, oh, it's their time, it's their due. So yeah, they had like 3 narratives going on, plus just all the awards wins that they were racking up. It just was like the perfect storm of a story, and it cleaned up with 7 wins. And one of those was Kiwi Kwan. And let's discuss the acting awards here. It was the first one presented, and this was like the lock of the night. If you're going to bet on any of the 4 acting ones, this was the one. Yeah. But man, it was still so nice to see. Like, it was still like, this is the one you start with because it's so emotional. You have Spielberg in the audience, obviously, you know, from the Goonies days, and also Temple of Doom. But then Harrison Ford being able also to present Everything Everywhere All at Once with that Best Picture win, and like to kind of get that hug, you know, from these 2 stars from, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago. It's wild.
Yeah, it is pretty wild. And I mean, hearing his story, he's done so many different things in the industry to come back and win an Oscar. I mean, it has to be like next level. You never thought it would have happened kind of thing.
Yeah, but it did. Congrats to him. And then I think this is like what they did kind of signaled where the night was going with Everything Everywhere, because like the very next thing was supporting actress. Normally they like space them out a bit, but because they kind of grouped up a lot of the awards with like presenters saying 2 of them, they did both supportings together, both lead categories together. And then, so immediately after this, we got supporting actress. And that was the one that kind of showed, okay, the momentum is for Jamie Lee Curtis. And once she won, because all season she was kind of like that third, person in the category. Everyone was talking about Angela Bassett. She did the thing. Golden Globes, Critics' Choice, like she was the early kind of winner. Then Carrie Condon was like, okay, she won the BAFTA. The Oscar voting body is very international. Okay, maybe it'll go to her. But then that last 2 weeks, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, a couple days before voting started, it really shows how powerful that is. And when Jamie Lee won that, boom, here she is winning an Oscar.
Yeah, and I mean, good for Jamie Lee Curtis. To me, this is one of more of the surprising moments of the night. I think a lot of people thought it might go to Angela Bassett. Yeah. And I wonder if just the pizzazz of the Everything Everywhere All at Once kind of rubbed off on Jamie Lee Curtis, and it was like, yeah, her performance is good, but the film overall is great. It's memorable. It's sticking in our minds, and that kind of helped Jamie Lee Curtis out in this sense. And I wonder, it might be unfair, but I wonder if the Black Panther being such a box office-y movie hurts the actors in a way, or
the Marvel
hurts it in
stigma.
some way. Yeah, yeah. I wonder if it does. I mean, to me, it doesn't, but with the older Academy members, it might have turned them off. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, is it like a Marvel curse? Marvel hasn't won an acting award before. DC has won, obviously, Heath Ledger for the Joker, and also Joaquin Phoenix for the Joker as well. So that one, does well, and we'll see next year if Lady Gaga wins for, or maybe it's 2 years from now. It's a while still before we get Joker 2, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, you mentioned maybe it's like the love of Everything Everywhere that kind of really propelled Jamie Lee here. I'm gonna kind of Jamie Lee's great. Obviously, it's the It's Time award also for her, but Stephanie Hsu, I think, was stronger in Everything Everywhere All at Once in this category. So it's I would have gone with her if I was choosing one of those nominees. But it's also, maybe the Academy thought, okay, she's young, she's gonna have plenty of opportunities. But still, it's always one of those things with the Oscars where it's sometimes I feel like we never give the award when it's time, just because that person's young, they'll have plenty of times, and then they 20 years later, it's should they have won for this? Even Leo with The Revenant.
Leo, yeah.
All right, okay, yeah, he's good in The Revenant, but he's much better in any film
Everything
before
else,
The Revenant, you know. So, so yeah. You mentioned Angela Bassett. Yeah, she definitely did not. She was definitely hoping for this win. You could definitely see it on her face when they announced the awards there. And everyone thought. I mean, we thought too. We both, us and the Good Bad Watchable, had a will win for Angela Bassett just because of kind of the narrative of the season. But thankfully, we put Jamie Lee as a dark horse after SAG. So, all right,
for sure.
Let's look at Best Actor, and that was Brendan Fraser. He did it over Austin Butler for The Whale. That was also the story of the night. Where are we going? Are we going Fraser or Butler? Just overall, a huge night for A24. It got all 4 acting wins: picture, director, and original screenplay. Because Everything Everywhere got all those minus actor because they didn't have a Best Actor, but then Brendan Fraser for The Whale, an A24 film, got that for him. So they had a really good night.
Yeah, I mean, good. I love a lot of what A24 puts out, so I mean, it's probably well deserved. I was just trying to think of who really set the path for A24. I remember A24 with the guy from Hereditary and Midsommar. That's who I remember. Ari Aster.
Yeah, Ari Aster. That was a more recent one because I feel I'm gonna look up real quick. A24. I mean, those are television programs. List of A24 films. The very first A24 film was Roman Coppola's A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Schwann III. Charles Schwann was played by Charlie Sheen.
Okay,
that's a wild fact. But Spring Breakers was an early one. The Bling Ring.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. Obvious Child. Yeah, there's
A lot of good indie stuff. Yeah, comes from them.
back in the day with Room, not the Room,
Not the room.
Swiss Army Man, another Daniels movie. But yeah, they've had quite a track record. And obviously, they had Moonlight a few years ago get the Best Picture win. But
I mean, I think we thought this was a possibility. This was our dark horse, right?
no, this was we made it. We made our will win.
It? Okay.
Yeah, on Saturday morning, it was our dark horse. But then after SAG, we're like, we switched it, and also Boyle made sure to switch it for the good, bad, and watchable.
It felt like a lot of people were talking about Brendan Fraser and what he did in this movie right up until the end. I think Austin Butler was kind of hurt with how popular he had become. He would almost became a joke, and in fact, he did. With Jimmy Kimmel made a joke about it in the thing. So I don't know. I think maybe you could also bring up the point of like, oh, he's going to be around. Yeah. Brendan Fraser feels like this.
It's another story. It's another comeback story.
And then he's kind of lost for a while. Comes back. He gets the recognition for a great film. So.
Yeah, it was not a good night for Elvis. I mean, once I saw it lose makeup and hair when it won the Tech Awards, I had a feeling, wait, there's love here for The Whale winning that over Elvis. It's like I think Brendan Fraser's going to be able to do it. And as the night went on, it's like you saw like Elvis wasn't getting anything in the below the line. It ended up getting 0 for 8, and that was not the only Best Picture nominee to get shut out. The Banshees of Inisherin went 0 for 9. Wow. The Fabelmans went 0 for 7. Tar 0 for 6. And Triangle of Sadness 0 for 3. So all those Best Picture nominees shut out because of how dominant the other 3 or 4 films were.
But to me, those other films are Oscar-y films. I didn't think Elvis deserved to be in many of the categories for the Oscars. It's just like... It was just I did not like Elvis that much, honestly.
Yeah. I'd say it was a fun popcorn flick at points. There was things I wanted more out of the film. There's definitely some memorable stuff, but for the length that it was,
I don't understand for the Oscars to be Oscar nominated. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me.
But so there was 3 other Best Picture nominees we haven't really mentioned yet. They just got 1 win each. So they didn't get shut out like the other films I've mentioned, but they got 1 win. And those were Avatar, The Way of Water, it got visual effects. Top Gun Maverick, 1 for Best Sound. And then Women Talking, 1 for Adapted Screenplay. So they didn't go home empty-handed, but still, it was just 1 there for those 3.
But to be fair, I feel like with a movie like Top Gun, even though I'd love for it to win some more, I think just to be nominated and to be recognized within the Academy is almost a win in of itself, because when would they have nominated something like this before? I don't see it. And Avatar, I mean, they're gonna have a problem moving forward with just sequelitis. Yeah. Just because you put out a sequel doesn't mean that
it'll win visual effects probably for the next whatever time they put it in. Maybe, who knows? I mean, there was talks like during the night even that All Quiet was winning so many. It's like, could All Quiet sneak in here and win over Avatar? But
but I mean, especially when it comes to animation, like you get used to seeing the same computer generated image. So it's like if somebody comes up with something new or different that's not necessarily as like impressive technically, but if it like makes it a unique art form, then they could get easily beaten out. I mean, I don't know. Depends on what people can do.
Yeah, this is always weird where it comes to stuff like this, because it's also like, where's the line with like animated versus visual effects, like especially with something like this, because it's like Marcel the Shell was Choose On, like was like obviously the shell was animated like stop motion, but it was taking place in the live action world, but that was animated. But then something like this, well, it's real, but not really, because everything around them is completely fake. So it's just like, I don't know. It's very confusing. But the last acting award we haven't mentioned yet was Michelle Yeoh over Cate Blanchett for Best Actress. This was another one, but like as I saw like the night going, it's like, okay, if Jamie Lee is gonna win for Everything Everywhere, it's gonna happen. It's just gonna be a clean sweep for them. And Michelle is now the second woman of color after Halle Berry to win in this category. But the sad fact is that's 2 out of 95.
Yeah, and also Halle Berry was like forever ago.
Yeah, and forever ago. So,
and by forever ago, it was like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. But, I mean, it was a cool kind of thing that because of what happened last year, normally the best actor and the best actress present their, the opposite category at the Oscars. The best actor was unavailable, so they had Halle Berry step in here to do it with Jessica Chastain. So it was kind of like a cool moment for her to kind of pass the baton, but still 2 out of 95 is not good. So, all right. So I do want to mention with kind of the acting awards, I noticed it specifically, but like there was very strange choices for like the layout and like the photos behind them throughout the evening. Like, and I don't know if they fully went to like camera blocking during rehearsal and seeing how this was going to look, but like, first of all, like for all the nominees, because there was like 5 in every category, they tried to do this thing behind them where it was like, well, we're going to split it in half, but it's like you can't split it in half when there's 5. So you have like 4 really like good panels, and then there's always one on the far left that was like 2 panels. And it was just like, it just seemed off. Like you could do 5 behind, put 1 behind it, just raise the camera up. But
yeah.
Anyways, the ones that were very confusing to me were like for the acting wins, because maybe it looked cool wide shot in the theater, but when we were going so close, things were weirdly cut off. Like Brendan Fraser, when he won for The Whale, like we saw like half of him on the left, like shaving in the mirror, and it was like this weird like cut. Okay,
yeah.
And then Kiwi Kwan's character is like dead on the side. Like it's like, okay, this is the best still you have for him for this movie? No, there's plenty of better stuff from this movie. Michelle Yeoh had like severed hot dog fingers in like her like, guys, like either
or go to like a blank screen in the back after the win or something.
Keep it like nice, like gold, behind them, but then maybe just outside of their frame, you show it for the audience or something for that wide shot.
Or even just the wide shot in general, and then come back to them, and it's got the gold plating behind them.
But it's like just one of those things where, like, we didn't think this through. Like, we didn't, like, oh, yeah, we'll put something behind them, but we didn't see, like, what it's going to look like. Because half the time it's like, there's someone's shoulder. It's like, no, this isn't good television. When they're trying to have this heartfelt moment, and you have, like, these hot dog fingers. But, yeah. Anyways, I think this is a good transition to talk about the ceremony, and like stuff like
of hot dog fingers.
Undercooked bits here. What did you think of the ceremony and how host Jimmy Kimmel did, Kyle?
I didn't watch the entire ceremony. I missed about an hour and a half in between, but the monologue was pretty safe. A couple of jokes fell flat that like even the audience didn't get. They didn't even laugh at one point to the one, and then it was like afterwards. But anyways, but some good ones. I always say this, it's a thankless job. I thought he did fine with it. I think he has the rapport with everyone there, so you're not going to get like scathing stuff like a Ricky Gervais, but it's I thought it went fine. I thought the monologue was fine. As far as bits, I didn't see anything when I was watching the ceremony that included any bits, really.
Which is weird because it's like there was like no pre-taped bits. He had like something like he went in the audience at one point, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but like somehow without any like bits and stuff, it was still rarely long. Like it was like this weird thing where it was like we cut out all this stuff, but man, we really kept the length of the thing the same.
I think from what I could tell, I think they were just letting people go with the speeches. And they were just like, people, you know what?
Certain categories, Yeah,
if they just want to talk, we'll just let them talk and we'll just let it be.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Kimmel did fine. Some were fun. Some like in his monologue, there was like he like roasts Babylon losing 100 million, and of course the audience groans, and there was like stuff like that. But you have to have jokes like that, kind of. You have to laugh about it. Like, you're getting paid so much money, we're gonna make fun of you for a little bit. But I did like the dig at James Cameron and Tom Cruise. Logical Robot in the chat was saying how there was no Tom Cruise here. Neither James Cameron or Tom Cruise went to the ceremony. And I like the line he says, like, the two guys who insisted we go to the theater didn't come to the theater. Like, it's like, you guys made it such a big deal that we would see stuff in person, and all these people came and you didn't show up. But Kimmel brought Jenny the donkey on stage. They did a brief Q&A in the audience, and I'll nitpick a little bit with the Q&A. Like, he ended up asking 3 questions. The first 2, okay, we're good. They're movie stories and jokes from the past year. You asked a Nobel Prize winner about Spitgate. You asked Colin Farrell about the dialogue of Banshees. Okay, those are topical stuff with this year. But then the third one, Jessica Chastain. Like, well, who is like not nominated or in a film that was nominated this year, was asked about The Martian, a movie from 8 years ago, solely just to roast Matt Damon, who also wasn't there and wasn't nominated. So it's like, guys, like, what are we doing here? Like, I
think because he has that bit about, he always just makes fun of Matt Damon no matter what. Like, and so I think it's like a long running bit. So
But what they should
the
have
better
done,
joke would have been like, there's nothing you've done in the last 8 years worth mentioning except The Martian or something.
That would have been good. There was, immediately after he said that, the Cocaine Bear, who was there presenting with Elizabeth Banks, was behind Kimmel, and I was waiting for, like, okay, maybe the bear's going to now attack Jimmy after he said that. Oh, take the head off. It was Matt Damon in the costume the whole time. No, that wasn't there. Like, what was the point of the? It's just you see it. It's like, guys, this is perfectly lined up. You could hit the home run, and it's like, no, we'll just go for a double. It's safer. It's like, come on.
But speaking of the still that you're on right here, could you imagine sitting behind that person with that big dress?
Yeah,
there?
that was a big talking point. It's interesting. Some of the bigger stuff was not really about the ceremony at all. It was that, and also a red carpet moment with Hugh Grant. Hugh Grant was being
I did not see this,
interviewed by Ashley Graham, and you could tell Grant did not want to be there at all. And well, she's trying to ask questions like, are you rooting for anything? And he says, no one in particular. And then when asked about who he was wearing, it's just my suit. And when she reminded him, well, you didn't make it, he's like, well, I can't remember my tailor. And it was like all these very like short answers.
Yeah, oh my God.
And then finally she's like, okay, what does it feel like to be in Glass Onion? This movie's nominated, it was, and he's like, I'm barely in it. I'm in it for like about 3 seconds. And she's like, well, you had fun, right? Almost. Well.
Oh my God.
So it's just like, she's like, well, it was nice talking to you. And his response, yeah. And everyone's like, come on. Like, she's trying her best here.
Yeah.
If you don't want to be interviewed, don't show up to be interviewed.
Like, or just leave. Like, I got to go over there. Hang on a second. Like, I got to go. Like, come on, dude.
I mean, she's trying to do her best. The best thing would have been to just, start putting in little jabs in there so that maybe it's like, dude, can you not be an a-hole?
Yeah. But
because what more do you expect? You go to these things. This is what you expect.
You gotta do the song and dance.
They have the
it's
damn
just,
cameras with the nails and all this stupid stuff. What do you expect?
You're on the red carpet. They're going to ask you, who are you wearing? Everyone knows this. You got to have something to say. But during the ceremony, instead of tape bits, we did get some taped commercials for some corporate synergy. The show stopped down to show a trailer for Disney's live action Little Mermaid. And I don't hate this idea. I just think, like, you got to let other studios use the time as well. Like, maybe, it's this whole thing is about celebration of movies. Maybe every studio gets, a 30-second thing or whatever. Hey, this is our big one this year. We're really excited about Oppenheimer. Let me show you a little behind the scenes of Oppenheimer. Kind of like what we saw for Avatar, for the Top Gun, the Mission Impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, we got this cool thing coming out, Paramount. Mission Impossible. Let me show you a little clip from it. That would be like, to drum up excitement for movies. But
That's a good
like
clip.
when
That's a
you
really
just
good
show
clip.
like, oh, it's well, ABC is airing the Oscars. Here's a Disney film, and
Yeah.
then
And also, the minute they did that, I'm like, of course Disney and
Yeah.
ABC would do this nonsense.
and there was only one other ad kind of like this throughout the evening, and it was for the 100-year anniversary of Warner Brothers. So it was like this ad for the studio, which was like such a weird thing. It's like, hey, look at all these films, and they had quite an impressive like montage of films. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. But it's like, okay, congrats, Warner Brothers. What do you want me to do?
The joke is
Like you on
that
Facebook? Like,
Yeah.
okay.
all those films that they probably showed go against their demographic
Yeah.
these days.
Yeah. I'm not gonna find them on
They're
Max.
ruining the brand.
But yeah. So I'll talk real quick about some of the awards that they added back.
Wait, can I mention one other thing
of
about the
course.
ceremony? They did an F-16 flyover. I'm like, for who? Who is this for?
Of the indoor theater.
Yeah.
Because also it was such a wide shot, and it was like up at the sky that like
So
this
it
could
just
be
looked like
anywhere. This could have been
floating? Yeah.
B-roll. This could have been anything. And then
Yeah.
for like, I was annoyed that like, oh, Kimmel went down from the rafters
Yeah.
of the. I'm like, if you're gonna do this bit, skydive, like you know, maybe not from a whatever that plane, but like do something a week ago out in the desert, like skydive, cut that footage in, and then like you got to make it big for an open instead of just
I mean, no wonder there were no bits. It probably
Yeah.
all used all the budget up on jet fuel for the jets to fly over. It's the stupidest thing because it's not even for the audience because they can't see it or clap. So what do they clap into the screen? And it's just for Jimmy Kimmel to come down. It was so stupid.
yeah, it really
So
could have been just some B-roll clip that they found on
They
Getty
should have.
Images.
They should have
like,
had the B-roll clip of Lady Gaga jumping from the Super Bowl.
they added her in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was there. She performed a stripped down version of the Top Gun song, which is interesting because like for the week leading up to it, she said, "Nope, I'm not doing a song. I don't have time. I'm too busy with Joker 2 to kind of fully commit to a song." And then like the day of, it's like, "Nope, well, I'm gonna perform. I'll perform it." And then it was like she like almost made it a point to be like, "Nope, I'm in a black T-shirt, black background, close up shot on me. That's it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not doing like." And it was probably one of the better performances. That and RRR. To me, I don't know if this is a hot take. I think one of the weaker ones was actually Everything Everywhere song. I thought it was like super like pitchy and the tone was all over the place. I know it's like live TV and it's tough, but I didn't think it was. I thought it was rough. But yeah.
I kind of tuned out. Sometimes I tuned out when the music came.
Yeah, I think they tuned out too. But yeah, so anyways, they added all the awards back in after, moving some of the tech awards last year to the pre-show and then cutting them in later. But the show still ran long, and I say it every year. People will probably get mad. I'm sure Rojas is typing away and mad at me right now, but I think we got to cut the short categories. I know the purpose of here, it gives exposure, but like, do they really? Because I feel like the Oscars don't even care. Anyways, the Academy doesn't care because multiple times during the night, they were the ones that were being played off and not allowed to speak. There'd be two people up there. After one person said like 10 seconds, the other one would come up. It's like, nope, time's up. That's it. Sorry, next one. And like, so if you're not going to show their speeches and like, you're not going to like kind of show or even allow them to be eligible for the other awards like cinematography, score, acting, directing. Like they're these like outliers of the ceremony. And I think like have a special awards show like the Creative Arts Emmys the night before or whatever. And then where all the short performers and the tech artists and everyone from all these shorts can be recognized. And then edit maybe those into the broadcast or maybe have them, the winners be presenters the next day or the next week or something. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it always like slows down because it's like films that are not eligible in other categories. And it's like, oh, and most of the audience unfortunately hasn't seen these. So it's just like, but no, that's my bone to pick.
I can see it from both sides being like, we're Oscar nominated too. We want our time just as much as anybody else. And, we worked hard on it and all those kinds of things. So I can see it from both sides because I can see it from the viewer's point of view where it's like, I don't really give a crap. But But I will say, I saw there was a short that was created for a film, and I'm gonna check it out now. I didn't know that somebody made a short based on the book. So
all right, I guess it worked. They got a viewer.
I just don't know how to watch it, so I'm hoping it's on like YouTube or something.
That's the other thing. Make them more like eligible for us to see them, and I would see them and add them to my list, and then I would be caring more. But it's like these things that are just hard to find.
Yeah, I do know that some theaters, especially weirdly, a local theater where my dad lives, they show all the Oscar short films at the theater. So it's like they all mount to like an hour. So it's like a big long film.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But all right, let's settle up our bet with good, bad, and watchable. And we do our predictions every year versus them, and this was our sixth year. Was it our sixth? Yeah, sixth year doing this against them. Yeah,
that's crazy.
I believe the first year it was just like the Knicks, and then Rojas was unavailable, so it was technically just Boyle that was there. And then Mark was added, to the podcast 3 years after that, or something like that. But anyways, in some way, we've been against that team. I will say we didn't do as well as years past. Last year we won 37-35. Last year we got everything right. The maximum number of points you can get is 38, and so we were just 1 point underneath that. It was because a Dark Horse won a screenplay that year. This year we did get 3 categories wrong, just straight up wrong. And we had
Which
to use,
ones are those?
And we had to use 3 Dark Horses. We'll go through them. Let's look at the results here. So the 3 we got wrong. Fortunately, the good and bad watchable also got wrong as well. It was makeup and hair, production design, and score. I will say I still stand by my picks. Obviously, those 3 guys had the same exact ones there. All the winners I had were like my number 2, neck and neck with them.
Production design went to All Quiet, right?
All Quiet did very well below the line.
Yeah.
And for me, because, if you look at makeup and hair, Elvis was the leader for the most part. BAFTA, Critics' Choice, the Makeup and Hairstylist Guild gave it 2 wins. The Whale only had like 1 in special makeup effects. So then, but when that one really is like, okay, The Whale is big tonight.
Yeah.
The Academy doesn't like Elvis. And that's just where they were going that night. And most prognosticators had Babylon winning production design and score. If you look at the math, like for production design, it was very strong in favor of Babylon. Critics' Choice, BAFTA, the Critics Group, the Art Directors Guild. It even beat All Quiet in these categories. And at the BAFTAs, which the BAFTAs loved All Quiet, and yet Babylon somehow won production design there.
Interesting.
So it's like, so it was wild to see it win. Like here, it's like, oh, I guess All Quiet's winning here, but like, you haven't voted for it all season, guys. Why are you voting for it now?
And it won best score too, and that was one of the things I actually didn't like about the film. I thought these stingers were so out of place. Maybe it was the editing of it, but I didn't love it. So
the 3-note score. I will say, a couple of people I was with last night, they were like, "Yeah, I kind of like this." And it's like, I don't know if you'll like it after 3 hours of it.
Yeah,
but
well, it would just be like. So quiet. You just, you did get a countryside shot, and then it'd be like, nah, nah, nah. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening here?
Yeah, so.
Too abrupt.
As for the rest, we correctly predicted best costume design over their pick of Elvis. Again, Elvis just wasn't clicking with the Academy. We went with Black Panther Wakanda Forever. The original film won for costume design, so we went with it. Repeating here. And then the Jamie Lee Curtis Dark Horse certainly helped us. They had Carrie Condon. We went with Jamie Lee for our Dark Horse. And then
we had the Michelle Yeoh for the win.
Yeah, Michelle Yeoh for the win instead of the Dark Horses as they had. They did get the screenplays for the Will wins for original screenplay and adapted screenplay. I had them as Dark Horses again. It was such back and forth all season because it was like, well, this one's picked up these 3 and this one's picked up these 3. They haven't gone head to head against each other yet. The first time was the Oscars. So with all that being said, the final score, 29-27, we won. Year 6. Here we go. Maybe the lucky number 7 for them next year. We'll have to wait and see. But 6 wins in a row for us. All I have to say is enjoy watching Pinocchio, guys. Enjoy.
Oh my gosh.
And it's not the Guillermo del Toro Oscar-winning animated film Pinocchio. It's the Robert Zemeckis live-action one that has I think I saw the Rotten Tomatoes score was in the 20s for both critics and audience.
Oh man.
Man. It won the Razzie over the weekend for Worst Remake, Ripoff, and Sequel. And it stars another Razzie winner this year, Mr. Tom Hanks, who won Worst Supporting Actor and Worst Screen Combo alongside his latex-laden face and ludicrous accent for Elvis.
Yeah.
That was the combo there that they made specific. But so that's it. That's the Oscars. Any last thoughts on the Oscars before we move on? I think we covered it.
No, I think we got pretty much everything.
Should we start predicting who's going to be winning next year at this point?
No.
I saw some early articles already.
No, well, that's Rojas was talking about this with The Fabelmans. It was like when you heard about this movie, you're like, oh, it's going to win everything, dude. You just never know what's going to happen.
Half the ones for last year at this time, they're like, oh, I think it's going to be this film, and this film. It's like, those 3 films haven't even been out yet. Like, it was like Killers of a Flower Moon, Oppenheimer. It's like, that was all this.
Yeah.
Like, they're all being pushed. It's so hard to tell when they're actually going to be coming out. But, all right, yes, that is the Oscars. That's all we got for that. We do have another thing that aired the exact same night as the Oscars, and that is The Last of Us. In order to talk about it, we have to go back, so send us back.
We're back, baby!
Gotta get back in time.
Was I so off? Why are you laughing?
That was a lot quicker than normal.
Oh.
He's ready. He's ready to talk about The Last of
on the
Us, the
ball.
season 1 finale. Look for the light. And Joel and Ellie, first of all, spoiling The Last of Us. We're talking about the finale. We're talking about the season. Be warned. But Joel and Ellie, they make it to the hospital where the Fireflies are stationed. But once Joel hears that Ellie wouldn't be making it out of surgery, that he attempts to rescue her back, which would, I guess, make it so there's not a cure to this apocalypse, seemingly. So he makes this big decision here. What we're going to do first is talk about the finale, talk about this decision that Joel makes, and then we're going to kind of look back on the season and maybe think about what we're going to be doing in season 2. I want to start off with John. What did you think of the finale and this decision that Joel makes?
Let me tell you, having played both the game and watched the show, very different feelings on both of them. It's very different when you're playing the game and you're into the game, you're enjoying it, and the game's leading you to a position where the right thing for you to do is to save Ellie and leave. Whereas in the show, when I was watching it, my opinion, it seemed like they were making him out to be this monster who's gunning down people. No, we can't save humanity. I need the girl. Like, very different feeling completely, which I don't think was their intention to make it feel one way or another. I think it's just that point of view swap from first person into a third person point of view. Very interesting. That being said, I did enjoy it. If I had to make a complaint, they took a lot of the game and squished it into 2 episodes, which I get. They had to do it for a season, and it kind of makes sense, like just blocking it to do that. But I think the last 2 episodes were maybe at least a third of the game for me, at least. So very, very fast paced at that point. But I enjoyed it. I can't say it was bad. It was good.
Yeah, we'll get to what we think about season 2 and what they could do a little bit later. But is this how, I guess, because there's 2 games, right? And this is how game
Correct.
1 ends.
Correct.
So this is the ending of game 1, and they kept the same ending. It sounds like as the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of had a similar feeling where it's like I'm torn on it because obviously I don't want anything to happen to either of our characters here. But like you spent the whole season with this mission to get her there to hopefully find a cure, and the way they present it, like he was getting a lot of people out. It was just boom, 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 boom.
People who were
going them all down.
surrendering.
Yeah,
he was killing. It he really seemed like he was going on a little bit of a rampage almost. Not an emotional rampage, not a like anger rampage, I guess. But
And I think it doesn't help that the episode before this is the episode where, after he wakes up from his medical coma kind of situation, he's interrogating two folks, and he's very violent with them, these villainous people that he's interrogating.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you see kind of like that kind of like no nonsense. I'm doing this. I'm getting boom boom. You're out. And then you kind of like see it in the next episode, obviously for a whole different reason, but it still kind of has that. Oh, I just saw you do this like last week. I still feel that like it's the same sort of thing. It is an interesting point that you brought up, John. But Kyle, what did you think of the finale?
I agree with John in that, yeah, I think the change in perspective changes the vibe of, how Joel's coming across and how we feel about his decision of trying to get Ellie rather than, save the world or save this cure or whatever. It's all dependent. That's like a philosophical question played out, and you kind of, as the viewer, have to choose which you think is the best decision. But as far as the finale goes, this is what I remember from the game. I remember a bulk of it being like in the hospital. I just remember that. So when they were here, when they finally got there, I'm like, I remember being in this thing forever. Like, I just remember being there forever. So this was like, I'm like, I don't remember anything from the rest of the season from the game. I'm like, when did this happen? But once we got to the hospital, I'm like, okay, I remember a lot of what was happening here. But honestly, for the finale, I thought it aligned with the video game fine, but I felt like the penultimate episode was better than the finale. It reminded me of like the old Game of Thrones style, where the penultimate would be the bigger splash, and then the finale is kind of a build up of the next season, and then also consequences from whatever happened in the penultimate episode. Yeah,
almost like a little bit of an epilogue here. And we kind of at least set up possibly, season 2. He ends up lying to her at the end of here, pretty much saying to her like, yeah, we brought you to the hospital. It looks like there's lots of you out there that are possibly, the cure, and they can't make it work. And so they kind of stopped looking for a cure. And then the Raiders overtook the hospital. So we ran out of there. And she asked, like, swear to me, like, is this all true? And he says, yeah, I swear this is all true. Obviously, that's not all true. And it's probably setting up a season 2 where she's going to find out that it's not true. But like, where do we go from here? I know, John, you probably know quite a bit where it goes. I don't know, Kyle, do you know where season 2 could go from based off of the games, or are you in the dark?
I haven't played the second game.
Okay.
I have a general idea, but I have not yet played it.
So I have played the second game. It's been a hot second, but if I remember, we go forward in time. So I think Ellie's a bit older, and I don't know what they're gonna do with some of the other characters. I don't want to give anything away, but
who knows? Like, with this actress, the way that it takes them, HBO, to make a show, this could be 3 or 4 years, and by then she'll be like able to put on some old age makeup or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm sure that she's probably a bit older than they're kind of making her to be as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think we're gonna see a jump in the future, and then I think we're gonna see, based on what I remember from the game, is ramifications and the consequences of her having to deal with the fact that, she was a cure and now that's kind of gone. And and then still living in this clicker world, which I will say with the show, with how well I thought the show was, it almost was so good despite we didn't get much clicker action. There really wasn't. And I'm kind of glad for it, because then it didn't turn into a zombie fest. But it was like it was more like the apocalyptic world that we're living in, and the clickers are there, but it's really more the consequences of living in
a
that
Station
world.
11 almost versus like a Walking Dead. And yeah, it's like I don't know where season 2 is going to go. It's like them surviving together. Of course, I bet she's going to find out at some point, and who knows, runs off or does something. Initially, I believe this was pitched as a 2-season show. I'm hearing at least some folks on the internet, who knows, that it could be now 3. I don't know. All I know is I mean, I'm hoping also with Craig Mazin and the team behind it, they were so good with Chernobyl that like they're not going to just run this thing to keep going with it. It's not going to be like The Walking Dead, many years, many seasons. But yeah, I'm hoping it can be like a really good, solid 2-3 seasons if they need it. But I just am really curious of where we're going to go, because I don't feel like it has that much it can do. But I mean, maybe, especially with how it ends here, like if it was a cure or something at the end, we could have a season 2, 3, rebuilding society, whatever. But I don't know.
I haven't played the second one, but I know there's a pretty big shakeup in the game. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have that shakeup, and then whatever thoughts they had for a third game maybe gets turned into a show and they make a game later or whatever. But I also went and looked it up. From the last 2 episodes of the show, for me, took almost 5 hours for me to play through the game.
Wow.
So they crunched it down a little bit to fit to 45-hour minute blocks. So again, probably the smart thing to do, but yeah, it did feel like they were moving fast.
Yeah. And we got lots of information in this finale. Obviously, talk about Ellie's first kill, and how it was her friend at the mall. We have Joel's head scar, which was actually a suicide attempt. But maybe one of the bigger things is we got Ellie's mom. We got a flashback. And at first, when I first saw this, I almost thought we were in a flash forward. I thought this was Ellie years from now, because I thought like the voice and the casting, I'm like, wow, this is really well done. She sounds like Ellie. And I'll mention that in a second. And but anyways, and we see the childbirth, and it's like, oh, maybe that is what led to possibly Ellie's immunity, that like she was bit, I guess, during the childbirth. She lies saying it was post. I cut the cord and then I got bit, but we saw that's not true. But you kind of alluded, Kyle, that the mom was just so good at being Ellie. Well, it turns out it was the original Ellie from the game. I believe Joel was in the last episode, right? I believe he was one of the guys
Troy,
at the
and that guy, Troy Baker, he voices like everything in video games, man. He is like every voice in every video game ever. It's insane. It's insane.
But yeah, I really thought it could have been like a jump ahead, because the show takes chances like this. I mean, we start with that like talk show 1950s cold open in the premiere, and we had so many episodes this season without the star, Pedro Pascal. We had 2 in a row that was pretty much like it was Ellie's show. We had Left Behind, with a story when it was Ellie and her friend Riley at the mall, her first kill that she ended up having to do. And then also When We Are in Need, last week's episode, with the kind of community leader who's actually like this cult leader, cannibal person. So
well, I mean, you will see as the show moves forward, it's definitely going to be Ellie driven. It's not a Pedro Pascal
to get back to the
situation anymore.
Could be a voice actor, but yeah,
it's definitely going to be an Ellie thing moving forward.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that the penicillin they gave Joel was A, real, and B, that good, because minutes after taking it, Joel's able to just take out like multiple
turns into
folks.
Michael Jordan with the Michael Jordan juice from Space Jam. Man.
And then this week, I mean, we kind of, talked about it a little bit, but like they're like, yeah, the moment of no mercy when it was like talking to the doc, like unhook her. It's like, I won't let you take her. Boom. Next, unhook her. And it was just like he's taking out every single person, every Firefly there.
The other thing that you have to think about is like we're in the apocalypse. Yeah. Is that one of the few surgeons that they have? And he just lights him up, you know, which is wild. But I have to ask, what do you think of his decision?
I mean, I'm like torn. I mentioned it at the beginning. Like I go back and forth on. I definitely feel I have like a little bit in the pit of my stomach comparing it to the episode before when he wakes up and he's interrogating those two guys. Obviously, those guys were villainous, but like the way he had like showed no mercy to them, I couldn't shake that feeling of him as a character when he was doing this again. Because there was multiple folks that like hands up, like I'm, no, and then he doesn't even think about it. But then it's like, well, that's just showing how much he loves Ellie and how much he cares for her, and it's just like,
I also think it's
selfish.
That could be as well,
because he wants her to be for him, like not, so she doesn't die.
I also think it's a reminder that Joel has a past too that we didn't see before this, and he was probably just as ruthless before, and
he
it's
lost
an apocalyptic world. So, I always come back to like with this kind of thing is, and we even see this in the real world, even if Ellie's killed and there is some kind of cure, what's a guarantee that the rollout of something like that is even going to be good in this apocalyptic world?
And let's be honest, is everyone going to take this cure?
I know the same thing. So like we see these things, it's like, even if there is this cure, how does it's such a hard thing. You got to get a bunch of people that are disbanded to then all take it, and then not to mention clickers are still around. So what do you not have to worry about getting bit by a clicker now? So you can just go in and like mow them down with like like a flamethrower or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good point. But the show did like interesting things, like doing these kind of like one-off episodes, or maybe even like arcs. These like 2-episode arcs throughout the season. Sometimes it did feel a little bit to me, a little procedural, a little even Mandalorian to me. I felt like every episode of The Mandalorian starts off, they go to a planet, he gets into an altercation, he solves it, and then he goes. Like it's like like almost like a chapter, every single time. And that's probably the video game element in this, because it's like, we run in with a group. The group is bad. The community's no good. It's just like, it's, there's a lot of that, very like Walking Dead. On the bright side, unlike The Walking Dead, each of these episodes on that show would have been like a full season. But here it was one episode. They really like, ABC, like they told the whole story quickly. And, some of these stories were really like devastating, just great, like stories. And it was, like you got Sam and Henry. Like you knew they weren't going to be added to the group. It made it seem like, oh yeah, it's going to be the 4 of us. No, it's not going to happen. I saw the posters, and they're being hunted by Melanie Linsky, that character. Any other show that would be like the big bad of the season. Nope, like 1 or 2 episodes for her. And they set up like the whole thing with like seeing clickers in the ground. Oh, don't worry about that problem. It's going to be okay. We'll worry about that later. Well, later shows up pretty quick, and they're all coming out of the, the hole there. You got the big bad. That was probably like the big like set piece, of clicker action of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, audience loved this big bad here. I'll briefly mention they loved this bloater so much that according to Adam Basil, the performer in the suit
like
here,
a giant human.
Yeah, he's in his Entertainment Weekly interview, his character is a bit of a sex icon, supposedly. He's had people sending him love messages on Instagram. He was asked to attend a viewer's wedding. They love bloater.
Does he have to dress up like it?
Maybe that's part of it, I guess. But yeah.
Interesting.
I think I saw something like that. This suit was,
Like so heavy, right?
It was so heavy and like so expensive. Like it was like a practical suit, and I think it was like close to like $1 million they spent on like this suit.
Oh my god!
Let me see if I can find up the exact like price with it.
That's insane. He did say it was heavy as hell though.
Yeah.
You couldn't make it out of like foam mushrooms that are painted. They have to like grow actual mushrooms, or like what do they do? What makes it so expensive?
I don't know.
Oh man.
Yeah, I could be wrong with that number. I'm seeing if I could find the article. Who knows if it was just a Twitter thing here. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot of stuff of how heavy it was and how elaborate it was. But yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, according to Daily Express, the costume cost £500,000. I guess the conversion I was wrong with.
Like 750 grand or something like that.
But yeah, so we're saying all this. We haven't even get a chance to speak about episode 3, long time, which may be like one of the best episodes of TV this year. I mean, we're going to see by the end of the year. I'm sure it'll be on a lot of top 10 lists. This love story between Bill and Frank, Nick Offerman and Marie Bartlett. One of the best episodes. And to get this like episode 3, I think this really like showed that this show was like really something special. Like it wasn't just like, this road story of these two. Like there's so much more to this, and like the apocalypse and how it affected everyone. And this is, I think, a very special episode. So I'm glad we got it. We got it early, and we'll see maybe some guest acting noms for these guys. It's gonna be a very tough acting.
Yeah, it's gonna be so tough
year. But yeah, the ratings for this show have only gone higher and higher. I mean, it started off strong. It was like just under like 5 million. It was the second most watched premiere for HBO after House of the Dragon. But each week it got more and more, and it ended, this finale with 8.2 million. That was up against the Oscars, and the whole show is averaging about 30 million viewers, which is now bigger than House of the Dragon. What they averaged 29 million cross-platform viewers over its run. So during the same of the run of the show, it's averaging more viewers. And it's not, it is based on a video game, but it's not based on a global phenomenon that was Game of Thrones. So
I wonder, what would you say is like the next most successful like video game?
I mean, that's John's question.
Oh,
movie or TV show?
Well, it was Warcraft, right? That did really well in the domestic box office.
Overseas, yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean, it also, I guess, depends on what you define as a video game, because like the Ninja Turtles did pretty well back then.
Super Mario.
I guess so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I hope we get more The Last of Us TV shows and less Mario movies. But
yeah, I guess you could say like critically acclaimed. Has there ever?
For a video game? There was some animated stuff for Castlevania that did really well. The Witcher did okay.
Yeah, that was, I guess,
but wasn't critic wise, but Halo, right? Kyle, you saw that on Showtime or Paramount or whatever.
I have not seen that.
Oh, no.
I don't know what it's like, but I feel like this is one of the few video game things where it's been, critically. But I mean, it's also a testament to the game too, because the game does have a great storyline as well that makes you not want to skip it. Like I'm playing. I know this is a tangent, but I'm playing Harry Potter right now, and I'm skipping through every line of dialogue. I'm like, this is annoying. Whereas this is like really, like you are invested in the story.
Yeah, and trying to pull images for this show, and I will just type in, Last of Us. I need this scene. I need an image for it, and it's like I always get the scene from the show, and it looks exactly like, not the show, from the game, and it looks exactly like it, and it's just like I have to do a double take. Wait, is that from the show or the game? It's just if the show or if the game is like the show, it must be a really good game, because I thought the show overall was really good. I think it really, it crossed over. I mean, it wasn't just for the video game folks, it was for all audiences. It was so
it's tough thinking about it too, because like Netflix is doing a BioShock movie. But it's not the same as a show. Like, if it were up to me, I'd love to see HBO do a show based on BioShock, because that world, you could do anything in. It would be you can do some crazy cool stuff, and it still be under the umbrella of Rapture or whatever. But instead we have Netflix who will cancel the movie 3/4 of the way through. Like, you know, like we'll have to see.
We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so that is it for The Last of Us. Who knows when we'll get season 2? But we'll definitely be watching it when we do get it. We're going to be off next week, though. We're going to be back on March 27th with another HBO juggernaut, and this for the final season 4 premiere of Succession. Also during that time, we're going to have the returns of Yellow Jackets, Ted Lasso. We'll have the premieres of Swarm and Lucky Hank. So there's going to be a lot of TV. So we'll figure out what else we're going to be talking about in addition to Succession. But that's going to be on March 27th. You can find episodes on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the blog, doordynasty.com. We're, of course, live Monday nights on Twitch, twitch.tv/doredundancy. Thanks, we're Ducky, Logical Robot, a couple of folks in the chat tonight. Been giving you some shout outs there. And social media, make sure you're following us on Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at doordundancy. I got to thank both you guys for joining me tonight, for watching all this stuff last night and then doing this quick turnaround to talking about it tonight. For John directing the show, putting it up on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. I couldn't do it without you guys, so thank you. Mm-hmm. But all right, until next time, I'm David Allen.
I'm Trevor.
And I'm Cobberger.
And that's all we got for Do or Duncy. Goodbye, everybody.